As the international community mulls over plans to bring an end to the fighting, Ukrainian officials are clearing up the damage caused by a Russian drone attack on the country's east. At least 14 people were reportedly injured in the attack, targeting a residential area in eastern Ukraine. It comes as Russia says its forces took control of 3 villages around Ukraine's eastern regions. Meanwhile, Ukraine says it struck a heat and power station in the Russian capital with drones, cutting off heating for thousands in the city. With me now is Andrew Rasiulis, retired official of the Department of National Defense. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Morning, Lauren.
So world leaders are saying that the U.S. peace plan needs work. What do you make of it?
I think there's some prospects here. Both sides would like to have a deal, but obviously it's the terms. But both sides are suffering, Ukrainians more than the Russians right now. The battlefield is favoring the Russians. So this is an opportunity for Ukraine to actually cut its losses and accept the reality of the battlefield. They may not like that, but if they can work out security guarantees, I think this is the key now. On the land side, Ukraine has lost 20% of its territory. That's a military fact, and they can't regain it. They know that. Now, the question is, will they withdraw from the fortress belt of the Donetsk? That's an interesting variable. We'll see that. But I think a lot of discussions now in Geneva that are happening as we speak are about security guarantees for Ukraine. If they accept the battlefield reality, how can they defend themselves in the future against a potential Russian attack? And there will be no boots on the ground, but there could be things like Tomahawk missiles and sensors, other ways of enhancing Ukraine's defensive position so that it would have a fighting chance, and basically kind of securing a new Cold War reality, a frozen conflict, but we can all live with it.
Andrew, we saw Trump coming out on social media earlier today saying that Ukraine's leadership has expressed, quote, zero gratitude for his efforts, while a U.S. delegation is holding talks with Ukrainian officials in Geneva, as we said. What do you expect to come out of all this, and what do you make of Trump's comments?
Well, Trump makes all sorts of comments, so I won't comment on that comment. What I will say, though, is I think that the officials in Geneva now are really trying to figure out a pathway forward on the security guarantee element. Again, I think that's where the negotiations are. Territorially, like as I say, it's pretty much settled on the battlefield. But how much room, like the size of the Ukrainian forces, there's talk about caps, 600,000. Maybe there won't be a cap. That kind of thing. I mean, but certainly there'll be no boots on the ground. The Russians would never accept that. So it's what's acceptable for Ukraine, what's acceptable for Russia. Can both live with that? Or, because the alternative is more war. And you go into 2026, both sides fighting it out. Again, remembering the Russians have the offensive momentum. So the battlefield continues to favor the Russians. That's a reality.
We know that Prime Minister Carney had a lot of feedback on the peace plan. What role does Canada play in these talks, if any at all?
Unfortunately, Canada's role is not as great as it could have been. Historically, Canada has a more objective view on conflicts, and we Canadians try to go back and forth between the various sides. Unfortunately, in this war, Canada has decided to take 110% backing of the Ukrainian position, which means we don't really talk to the Russians. We only enhance or repeat, echo the Ukrainian position. So we're not the kind of helpful fixer, the negotiator, the person, the country that's trying to figure a way out forward. A practical solution is what normally Canada does. In this case, we've been simply echoing the Ukrainian position, and we've therefore ruled ourselves out of an effective role.
Okay, well, we hope to see some positive progress coming out of Geneva. Thank you, Andrew. That is Andrew Rasiulis, retired official of the Department of National Defense.
You're welcome.